Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and do you remember this video that I posted over 2 months ago? Well, apparently, OP posted multiple updates since then, so we will be checking them out today. And as per usual, if you already watched the original video, you can skip to the timestamp on your screen right now, but if you haven't, don't worry. The entire story will be compiled on this one. So without further ado, sit back, relax, hold on to your Dragon Balls, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll begin. My soon-to-be ex-wife cheated on me, ruining a 6-year-long relationship. Her life is now in shambles, and I'm happy about it. Posted by Reddit user Lace Up.
This is a long story, but I'll try my best to make this short. We'll have to make multiple parts though to get full picture through. My soon-to-be ex-wife, who we will call Y, and I got married January 2020. I was 22 years at time and Y was 21. We got married in secret, only our close friends knew. At this time, we were living on campus at our university in Miami, both coming from 2 counties away, and where our families lived as well. As soon as we got married, it was a toxic nightmare. For starters, she was secretly texting her ex-boyfriend from high school, who we will call Jay. She stated they were just friends now, but this didn't sit right with me as this person was also her first time. I'm not the type of person to go into someone's phone as I wanted to trust her.
By the end of this, you are going to be crying like a little bitch.
However, she started trying her hardest to hide her phone screen from my point of view, and whenever I touched her phone she would go crazy. At some point, I was able to figure out her passcode and check her messages. However, I wasn't able to find any proof to follow up on this. Fast forward March 2020, the pandemic hits and everyone is forced to move back home. We were in a weird position as we still haven't told our families, so we wore our rings in secret. Everything was seemingly okay until the first week of April 2020. She just randomly stated she wanted a divorce. It shattered my heart to hear that, as I cried and begged her to stay. I tried asking where did I go wrong or if I wasn't doing enough for her. She just stated she just didn't love me anymore and that she wasn't the one for me. For about a week I was trying my best to save our marriage. I was at her mercy to try to make things work out, but she's extremely stubborn. At the end of that rough week, I decided to finally accept that she doesn't want to be with me anymore. It was hard to accept, but I figured we shouldn't drag this along anymore. I only asked for her to return the wedding rings I gave her. However, she refused to give them back as she stated it was a gift from her and she was entitled to keep them. Legally speaking, she may have been right. However, I didn't feel like she deserved to keep them as we were no longer going to be together. The rings were real and I was only a payment plan for them for about 3 years, with only 4 months in so far. We argued about this over the phone to the point I hung up and cried to myself in bed.
Wow, like a bitch.
And that's what Frieza said.
My mother asked what was going on. I confessed everything to her, and she held me in her arms and told me everything was going to be okay. The next day we both went to Y's home to where we confronted her mother and told the truth to her as well. It became an argument between our mothers, with Y still upstairs refusing to see me but was texting me asking what the hell was going through my mind getting our families involved. It was then agreed by our mothers that the rings would be given back to me but on another day. About 2 days later, I get a call while at work from Y. She was crying stating that her mother was kicking her out because she got married in secret. She stated she still loved me and was willing to give us another try, agreeing to cut off Jay, and that we should move in together and live as a married couple. Being the idiot who was in love at the time, I rushed out of work to meet up with her and then we immediately started looking into apartments in the area.
That's stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid!
I was able to get us an apartment that was fairly cheap due to the pandemic, and the move-in date was within 3 days. When I got home, I told my parents the news and my mother was not happy about this. She explained that I was making a mistake, that I need to rethink all this. My father was disappointed but stated it's my life, my choice. For the next few days, my friends helped me move things from my place and I barely talked to my parents within those days. It was heartbreaking for my mother the most and hurt me seeing my mother upset as well. First day in, I felt like our marriage was finally moving in the right direction and I was finally feeling that happiness I was feeling before she told me she wanted to divorce me. However, that happiness did not last long. A few weeks after moving in, we get invited out for some drinks, and when we got back home, I went through her phone to find conversations between her and a different ex, who we will call E. The messages went as far as around the time she asked for a divorce, and this made my legs crumble. She was passed out on the bed. However, I woke her up by splashing water on her and started screaming at her. She was confused as she was still tipsy, but I was very furious and yelled at her for over 2 to 3 hours. At one point, I demanded her to leave as she was starting to come back to her senses. She began swinging at me and chasing me around the apartment, actually punching me a few times and clawing at me. I'm not a violent person at all. I took the abuse and just locked myself in the room to keep her away from me. She started crying and begging me to forgive her, to the point she was on her knees and stated she would do anything to make up for it. We just began arguing and then slowly talking about this situation through the bedroom door. Eventually, we both calmed down and went to bed, as it was 4 a.m. when this was happening. I didn't sleep, however, and when 7 a.m. came around, she woke up with only half the memory from what happened overnight. I yelled everything back to her again, but this time she was sober enough to know what was going and again pleaded for me to stay. She cried, stating she had nowhere else to go. In that moment, I hated her very much, as I feel she stole me from my family, my friends, and my life. About what I saw in the messages, there was nothing that stated they've done anything physical, at least from what was texted. However, there was conversations that had sexual tensions, such as her calling E sexy and E stating they should make a video together, which I still consider cheating. After further arguing, I told her as long as she promises nothing happened between her and E, I better not see her talking to E ever again, or I will leave her this time. She pleaded that nothing ever happened, but during the same conversation I asked if anything had happened between her and Jay. She paused and said no. It was at the moment that made me want to investigate this further. My gut told me this was only the beginning of what was to come next and turn my world upside down. I'll explain more on this another day. And now for OP's first update. Following my previous post, we are now in May 2020 when I asked if anything happened between her and Jay, where Y reluctantly responded no. The way she answered that made me suspicious. To add on a little bit more, when we first moved in April 2020, I was working at a call center about an hour away from our apartment from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. She was not working due to her job being closed, so I had to start doing Uber Eats, Postmates, and DoorDash, which would usually be 8 p.m. 2 a.m. after work or whenever on my days off from work. Also, after the first night we moved in, I was given the cold shoulder from her every night.
I feel like we've been here before. Have we been here before?
While I'm at working, she would text me cute things such as her repeatedly say she loves me and waiting for me to come home to cuddle. However, once I got home, she would barely touch me or look at me, which led to my discovery about her and E. Anyways, now we're in June 2020, weeks after the incident. At this point, I'm keeping my distance from her, keeping my same work routine, while also trying to finish college classes online. She was not working yet, but whenever I came home it was never cleaned unless I did it. Around this time, she also adopted a mini golden doodle, but when we moved in I brought my Malshi along with us, who she loved dearly until our doodle came around, also giving him the cold shoulder. For the next few months, it's been nothing but the same routine. We tried to talk and go out on dates, but it always ended in silence. I tried to break the ice and see if we can work it out, but she never wanted to express herself. Little by little, I felt my love for her going away, as I became numb to her treatment towards me. That was until October 2020, when she finally opened up to me. She apologized for her treatment towards me the past few months. We felt like we were both ready to leave the past behind and just focus on us now. It was us against the world. This felt more powerful when I caught COVID the following month, where she cared for me the way a wife should. She ended up catching it from me once I recovered, and I returned the favor. After that, we started acting more like husband and wife. She finally started getting into my hobbies such as video games, anime, art, and photography, even coming along with me during my late night deliveries where we would vibe out to music and she would help as well. We discovered new things about each other, went on dates, and honestly it felt heartwarming being her presence again. That spark between us was finally coming back, but I still had a secret grudge against her actions as it was hard to move on from it. All was going good until a few days before Valentine's Day 2021, where I made another discovery. These past months I still secretly went through her phone every now and then, but honestly never found anything between her and E besides what I already knew. However, I decided this time to take it a step further and look at messages between her and her bestie, who I would constantly send all the gossip to with long messages and screenshots. Going through the messages made my heart sank even more when I found more details about her and Jay. Turns out that Y and J slept together a few days before she asked me for a divorce, and this was actually the true reason for her asking me for the divorce. As I kept reading, turns out Y and J had a conversation sometime in October 2020, I guess for some closure between them, which is why she finally decided to give us a shot. Oddly enough, I was not surprised this time. I woke her up from her nap and just straight up confronted about what I just read in a surprisingly calm tone.
Oh my god, this is happening again.
She started crying and apologizing about it, and then I just stepped out and went for a drive to clear my mind. Many dark thoughts were going through my head, feeling like I had no one to turn to. For the next few days, I avoided her actions as much as possible. We still slept in the same bed, but there was no physical touch between us. Now Valentine's Day morning, I get a couple of nudges from her in a cutesy tone asking what did I plan for her today. Keep in mind I'm extremely exhausted from work and my deliveries from the whole week, and obviously I'm still heartbroken. She started crying saying that I didn't plan anything out for her. Once I heard that, I jumped out of bed and began scolding her about how crazy as hell she was to think I would do anything for her after what I just discovered. I yelled at her how she does not deserve anything from and how our marriage is a total disaster. Now you may be wondering why am I even still here with her. Well, at this point in my life, I honestly did not have the energy for anything. I was completely blank, a complete 180 from the person I used to be. I used to be creative, make drawings and paintings, do photography and videography, and always looked forward to the next adventure. But I was hollow, feeling like what's the point of life?
Weakness of any kind completely revolts me.
I know I'm stupid for this, but I just felt like it was just easier to hide it from the world. We were already so deep into the marriage life that it felt like there was no going back. Because if I did, then what would I do now? It was a dead end for me, and I blame myself for relying on her to make me happy despite also making me the saddest. Doesn't mean I forgave her or anything, I just became more numb. So after this discovery, we again entered another period of keeping our distance. Around April 2021, she took a trip to Peru with her grandmother, and honestly I was a little excited to have the place to myself for a change. I told my friends the news, and they began showing to my place frequently while she was away, not knowing what I know. They made me feel like my old self again, doing our old late night shenanigans and old activities like game nights, watching movies, or just hanging out. I loved the happiness I was getting back, even if it was for a moment. At the same time, the lease on our apartment was up by the end of May 2021, and I've been speaking to my father about my possibilities. That same month, my mother went up to Chicago to spend time with family members for the remainder of the year, and my dad came up with the idea of letting me and Y stay at their home while he follows her to Chicago. I agreed, but Y wasn't so enthusiastic about it. However, I didn't need her approval. It was either here or having our rent twice the price from before for another year. I moved back in with my parents June 2021. Y is still in Peru but was returning in the next few weeks. I finally felt at home again, moving back into my old room and seeing the layout that represented my spirited youth I once had. I enjoyed my last few weeks of freedom, but I knew this happiness wasn't going to last forever as Y finally returned from her trip from Peru. The next part of this story is where shit really hits the fan, almost costing me my life. And now for OP's second update. So now it's June or July 2021. Y and I are living at my parents' home. I started a new job in sales and was able to advance pretty quickly to a supervisor role within 2 to 3 months, which paid well enough to afford my dream car. As for my marriage, we had a steady relationship for the remainder of the year. We had our good and bad moments, but overall it was still a blank feeling I had. I didn't know what I felt towards Y. Whether it was anger, sadness, depression, I just felt like the marriage was just existing for no reason. By the start of 2022, there was a bit of reconciliation between us, enough for us to start going out on dates again. We opened up more, but we were still wondering where our marriage stood. Everything was seemingly okay until May 2022, where my life flashed before my eyes. I invited my friends over for a hangout at my parents' place to watch a boxing match. I told Y about it and stated how it will be only for a few hours and to expect some yelling as we get passionate about sports, and she was okay with it. As the fight kept going, we kept getting louder and louder, to the point she was angrily texting me to keep the noise down. She would come out to grab snacks or use the bathroom, only to keep slamming the door back to the room. After the fight, one of my friend's truck had a dead battery, so I used my car to jump it. While we're jumping it, the four of us kept conversating for about another half hour. While we were talking, Y demanded me through text to come inside repeatedly, to which I texted back that we're finishing up. As I'm just about to head inside, Y storms outside the house and heads to her car. I asked if everything was okay, but she had a very serious look on her face and she angrily pushed me aside. Before leaving to Chicago, my dad installed outdoor solar lights in the front yard. The way Y's car was positioned, her only way out was through a grass area that had one of these lights. She revved up her car and before she took off, I tried to stop her from running over the light and asked what was wrong. She paused for about 5 seconds, then stepped hard on the gas and almost ran me over. I jumped out the way as fast as I could, getting grazed on my knee. She drove off fast, dragging the light beneath her car, scraping the road. I sat on the ground with a surprised look on my face, thinking how she just almost ran me over. My friends helped me up and asked if I was okay. I just looked at them in shock, and they offered their help. I told them just to go home while I went back inside, shaken up from the moment. I kept calling Y's phone to see why she did what she did. I go inside our room to find her phone on the ground unlocked. I go through the phone for the first time in months, and turns out there were still secrets to find out about Y. Turns out, Y and J actually had a continuous affair for months, ranging from March 2020 to October 2020. I finally felt something in my heart and brain to do what needed to be done a long time ago. It's about 2 a.m. I was still freaking out about this incident. I repeatedly called my sister, who lives down the road from me, about what just happened but with no response. Y returns and tries to enter the home but I manage to lock the door with an additional lock. I sneak out to the back and drive over to my sister's house while hyperventilating as Y pursued me. I get to my sister's house knocking, but as Y pulled up in the driveway, I began knocking frantically as my sister and her husband finally opened the door. This caused Y to back off and drive away. I explained the situation to my sister and cried to her about what just happened, and finally opened about how she cheated on me in the past. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I was ready to finally let this marriage go. I asked her to accompany back home to make sure Y doesn't try to hurt me again. When we get there, Y was already packing up her belongings. I kept my distance for about 5 minutes, then asked her to give me back the rings and the keys. She already expected this as she had them in her pocket, already gave them to me. She grabbed her suitcase and took our golden doodle with her. My sister and I talked a bit longer and then she finally goes home. That night was a long one for me. I slept at about 6 a.m. only to be woken up about 7 a.m. to knocking on my window from Y. She spent the remainder of the night in her car and asked if I could at least take back the golden doodle inside. As much as I wanted to, I ignored her knocking. This went on for about 30 minutes. Later on, I reached out and met up with her to talk about the situation. I finally told her about everything I knew and decided it'd better for us to separate. She cried and begged me to let us work this out. But I was tired of the emotional and physical abuse all these years, the lies, the heartbreaks, everything. As toxic as it sounds, what followed afterwards for Y was actually satisfying, as I felt like it was karma for everything she has put me through. I will sound like a dick in the next part, but I believe I deserve a genuine laughter for once. And now for OP's third update. Y moves back in with her mother, but not for long, as she does not get along with her stepfather and has too much pride to be living under her mother's roof again. She ends up finding her own place August 2022, stating that if I ever wanted to make it work out, I was always welcome to move back in with her. My parents came back from Chicago about a week after we separated. A majority of the furniture in our bedroom was hers, as she made me throw out my items such as my bed and drawers and replace them with hers as it looked more classy. Besides the bedroom, we had a couch, tables, kitchen appliances, etc., all boxed away in another room in the house. The day she told me she was coming to take her belongings, my father and I left everything out in the driveway but did not bother to help them move anything into the truck. She brought along her mother, stepfather, her uncle, and her 2 aunts, who I would say are not all physically strong people. Her grandma was also there to mostly watch but helped with little things to move. What took my father and I about 30 minutes to move and maneuver out the house took them 2 to 3 hours to put in a truck. We peeped through the window having a few drinks and laughed about how they were struggling while they were all talking shit about me and my family. I don't know why they included my family, but then again, they're a family who talk shit about everyone and everything. When Y moved into her apartment, she was working a new job she got through her field of study, which paid well by the hour, but didn't get enough hours. She had too much pride to work a second job, as she felt like this was below her. Because of this, she struggled to keep up with her rent, electricity, water bill, car payments, insurance, etc. She reached out to me a couple times asking for money, but I refused to help her as I felt like her financial problems had nothing to do with me. Y would try to gaslight me to give her money, saying I shouldn't let our golden doodle suffer along with her, which I replied that she should go ask her lover for money. I was surprised to learn later on that she told her mother the truth, and her mother took my side and stated she would not be giving her money either. The rest of her family still hated me for not wanting to work it out after she cheated. But their opinions don't matter because none of them are married themselves. Months went by, we were still legally married. Y agreed to go half on the divorce fees, but did not have the money. During these discussions, she admitted she still had hope for us to work it out as she still had love for me and believed I still loved her back. Call me stupid, but I did love her back, but I just knew I couldn't keep playing this game anymore. Despite everything she's done to me, it was still hard for me to hate her as this is someone I've grew close with in high school, who's helped me when I was at my lowest point in life and made me happier than anyone else ever could. Yet she still managed to break me and made me feel like I will never be good enough for anyone ever again. We still have each other on social media, and even though she claims to be struggling with money, she always seems to be out every weekend at the clubs. This usually ends up with her drunk texting or calling me, stating she was wrong for how she treated me. Whenever I post on my Instagram or Snapchat stories about being out late at night, she's usually the first to see my posts, usually within a minute. She acknowledges that I look happier without her. As of now, I wouldn't say happy, but I do feel like this is freedom. Since moving out, she's gotten into 2 car accidents just a few months apart. We're no longer on the same insurance together, but she still called me asking if I can financially help her, which I refused and told her she was on her own now. I still had her on my phone plan a few months after, but decided to disconnect her line without letting her know. Once reconnected, she angrily texted me days later about how she lost her number and had to get a new phone because her current phone was still locked with my carrier, and she couldn't call to unlock it since I was the account holder. She called me a dick and I couldn't help but laugh about it. I have this ex-girlfriend that I ended off on good terms with. We were friends until Y and I got married, where she forced me to cut off my friendship with her out of fear that my ex would try to get with me again. We started hanging out again, and when Y found out, she swears that I only divorced her to get back with my ex. I had no interest in her after the breakup, only seeing her as a friend at this point, even after Y and I separated. From what I heard from a mutual friend, she tried to get Becky, who now has a girlfriend and a child. She also tried again with Jay, who now has a girlfriend. Y would sometimes reach out to me about how she's still behind on certain bills, would barely eat, almost got evicted twice, and can't afford to care for the golden doodle. If I had to guess, she's most likely getting money from her grandmother. We would still text time to time to figure out a court date or days where I still had to give some leftover stuff from home. She would always say she would never find a guy like me and how much she wishes we could try again and regrets her actions. Part of this made me feel happy for karma. The other part would be feeling sad about how everything led up to this moment. Around March 2023, we went to court to finally file our divorce. While waiting for our turn, she stepped out in the hall to cry her eyes out while I just sat there not knowing what to think. After about 10 minutes, it's finally our turn and we began signing away. Ever since then, we just now talk with a few texts once everywhere 1 to 2 weeks, saying what we have left to say. As for myself, I was promoted to manager a month after we separated. I stayed in this position until November 2022, as I was overworked to the point of getting no sleep. I was able to find a better paying job, one that I continue to work for to this day. During the marriage, I've gained weight from overeating to help cope with my depression. I've been going back to the gym, but need to work on getting a routine. I have big plans with my friends for the summer and myself for later this year. It's now June 2023. I wouldn't say life is perfect, but whenever I'm having a bad day, I think about how Y's life is basically falling apart now ever since we parted ways. Makes me feel like she deserves to feel what I felt for 6+ years. I'm an asshole for thinking this way about her, but at least my life is finally going in the right direction and hopefully continues that way, and she could see how happy I could be without her. And now for OP's final update. This is my last post about this, just for a few clarifications. I had to cut this section out of part 4 to be able to post it. If there's any other questions, I can try answer them as well. The history of Y and I dates back to our high school days. There's more details about how Y and I first met up to the point where we got married. Looking back on it, we always had a toxic relationship. But that's to say it was all bad, as we had our great moments as well. As for how our boyfriend and girlfriend relationship went, and why I married her, I'll explain that another time if necessary. I appreciate the feedback, both good and bad. Like I said before, I was a dumbass who thought everything would magically work out. I don't know if I would call this outcome a win for me, but at least I can finally start over now. To the readers that think this is made up, I don't have the time to come up with a story like this. I'm posting my experience as a way for me to get this off my chest. I'm not the best when it comes to expressing myself in person, and Reddit probably isn't the best place to do it. But posting here with other people who had similar experiences made it easier for me. But thanks for still actually reading all these long posts. Sadly, this isn't my first rodeo. There's a relationship I had before this that broke me and made me who I am today. Sounds dramatic, but that's the best way to put it. I'm open to talking about it one day.
Look, OP, I am also one of the folks that thinks this is fake, but let's pretend for a moment that this is a real story. You should have divorced her the very first time you found out that she cheated. Because your ex-wife seems like an evil bitch. I don't know why you kept staying for so long. You definitely need to grow some balls. And for the love of everything that is holy, stop talking to her, you damn donut.
For those who don't know the story, I have several posts about my wife and I on my page if you want to read it. I apologize for the long posts if you do. Anyways, today I am going to court to meet up with my wife, who we're calling Y. She texted me Monday, June 26th to remind me we have court today, June 30th. Yesterday she gave me one more reminder and also asked for a few things I still had left of her. I asked for some things as well. We still have each other on social media where we still see each other's stories. I don't snoop or anything, I just happen to see it when I'm seeing other stories. I suppose she has a sort of new boyfriend now, or at least is working up to it, as she's been posting text messages between her and the same guy. I don't think it's to get me jealous or anything, but knowing her, she likes the attention from other people, as she did the same thing when her and I were becoming a thing. But I don't feel any jealousy or hate towards her. I'm actually relieved she's moving on. The way I see it, someone else is taking over my old problems. They have no idea what type of hell they're getting into. All I can say is good luck, they're going to need it. As for court, I actually feel excited about it. I can continue to move on with my life and she can finally be out of the picture. She stated that even after the divorce we can still be friends, mostly because of the golden doodle we have together. Despite me loving that dog, I have to let this all go. After we finalize everything, I will block her on everything so I don't have to see or hear about her again. As for myself, I haven't tried to meet anyone new. I don't really have it in me to try again. Main thing holding me back is the trust issues and my own insecurities. Usually when I've been in a relationship, it's always been the female that made the first move on me, including why I should really change that though. But for right now my main focus is work and bills that I'm close to paying off. One of my friends is now training me at the gym. So far I've lost 10 pounds. My friend group and I are going on our summer trip next week. We have multiple locations to drop by within our state. So yeah, life is good so far, and I'll try to update how the court went afterwards. New update 1. Sorry for the late update. I've been working overtime like crazy, but today I have time. On Friday, June 30th, we get to the courthouse and wait for our turn with the clerk. After like 3 minutes we get called and there's only one chair for us to sit down on. I take the chair for myself, and even though I'm not looking at her, I can feel Y staring at me hard. She says, "Can I at least sit down?" To which I respond, "Then grab a chair," and she just says whatever and stands up. We explain the reason for divorce. We're not fighting for anything, just simply separating. A couple times, the lady had to walk back and forth or type something in the computer. During those moments, she would say little remarks like she can't wait to get rid of me, that it was me who trapped her into a marriage, and that I never satisfied her, etc. Not to sound cocky, but I know she was saying most of that stuff to mask what she really felt. I know this because she followed up that she hopes I have fun with my ex, who we're still friends, but like I said before, I have no interest in, but she swears I'm in love with. While we kept going back and forth, the clerk was trying so hard not to laugh. We pay the fee, and now we just have one more court date in 1 to 2 months. It was raining when we walked out, so we still discussed a few things. Main thing, she asked if I could watch our golden doodle in August while she goes to her trip out the country. I said not possible for me, and she followed that I'm a deadbeat dog dad and that I will never see him again and left. Here's the kicker. Yesterday Y asked if I could watch the Golden Doodle for today, to which I can't because I work today, even though it's 4th of July. And also, today is her birthday. She won't be getting a happy birthday from me though. Also, her family does not celebrate birthdays, especially her mother and stepfather because they're both Jehovah's Witnesses. Her only real option is her best friend, who's most likely going to do something with her boyfriend rather than Y. So yeah, now I'm at work waiting 2 more days before vacation. Nothing really different going on from the last update. New update 2. This is the final update on this, as I'm finally a free man. Yesterday, July 18th, we had a Zoom conference call with the judge to finalize our divorce. Initially, it was supposed to be 1 to 2 months from now, but our date came quicker than we thought. It was very quick, no more than 1 minute, 2 minutes. We raised our right hands and answered the questions they asked related to why we're divorcing. The judge asked a question to Y that had her hesitate. The judge asked something like, "Can you confirm if this marriage is unable to be resolved?" And she just gave the biggest blank stare at the camera and finally said yes. After that, he stated we would receive an email either the same day or the next finalizing our divorce and ended our Zoom call. I don't think it has hit me yet that I'm now legally single since I felt like this for over a year now. Nothing about my life feels different other than the fact I don't have to deal with Y anymore. I have no reason to speak to her now, and I'm taking some of your advice in the comments and never contacting her again. I still read the comments, good and bad, and appreciate all the feedback. No hard feelings, as this is the position I put myself in my life, so I deserve all criticism. But thank you everyone for hearing me out on this. New update 3. To those who read my long-ass toxic marriage and divorce story, hopefully this sheds some light on what happened before Y and I got married. Again, I'll try to make this short, but if you don't like my long reading then fuck off. Technically speaking, Y and I knew each other since elementary since we went to the same school, same with middle school, even had class together, but we never talked to each other. My freshman and sophomore year, I went to 2 different schools due to moving homes, before staying at my 3rd and final high school for 11th and 12th, where Y went. The funny thing is that before getting with Y, I actually got together with her friend, who we'll call VV, and I had a sort of relationship during our sophomore year before I went to her school, but it never officially happened. During our senior year, we tried to work it out again, but nothing happened, so I felt kind of bad, and Y just happened to be there for me for comfort. Y and V stopped being friends around the same time, but for reasons unrelated to me. Y and I got close mostly due to us having a class together. She started messaging me on Instagram, and eventually it led to texting, and then late-night phone calls. During lunch on the last day of school, Y and I went behind the portable classes in our school where almost no one could see us. We talked for a bit, but eventually she just grabbed my dick out of nowhere. We did hear people getting near, so we stopped and went to our own classes. We laughed about what just happened but moved on. A few weeks later we had a graduation rehearsal, and when it was over I gave Y a ride home. While driving, I jokingly said she needs to give me cash, gas, or ask for the ride. She dared me to pull over, and once I did, I saw how serious she was when she put her hair in a ponytail. So yeah, we fucked in my car. And the next day I walked on stage with a huge hickey on my neck. Afterwards, Y and I didn't know what to think of each other as she left for Peru for the rest of summer. While there, she would still tease me with photos and videos. When she got back, we started hanging out again, and quickly we would start being friends with benefits. We always said we didn't have feelings for each other and just wanted to have fun. The way we had our schedules to meet up was too good. Besides our jobs and colleges, her family would be away from her home at a very specific time every week due to owning a business. So from Wednesday through Sunday, between 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., we had an open house, and we usually started fucking from 9 to 10 a.m. until I needed to leave, usually before 6:30 p.m. to play it safe from her family. On the other days, I would sometimes pick her up and then we'd just do it in my car. I would say we were fucking at least 5 times a week. This went on for a whole year until finally we decided to become a couple, seeing how we basically acted like one already. The first few months were good, but being official changed her. This started her hatred towards me hanging with my friends or talking to females. To counteract this, I would just see her the same day or next and give her the goods. This always changed her mood, and she would let me do whatever I wanted afterwards. This became a cycle for the next year or so, and it was one I became adjusted to since I always knew the outcome. As a couple we went on dates, but seeing how we were friends with benefits before, we seemed too sexual with each other wherever we went. It was the norm for us, being horny young adults anywhere. But of course, we had our serious moments where there were pregnancy scares, talks about starting a family, and someday getting married. We know how that turned out. So before our toxic marriage, we were pretty much each other's halves. We knew everything about each other, pushed each other to further our goals, felt the love we had for each other during our lovemaking. We looked very much like a perfect couple according to everyone we knew. So yeah, that's why it was hard to let Y go, even after finding out she cheated. A part of me didn't want to believe that it was true, because I thought there was no way this person would stoop so low after everything we had been through. But people change, and anyone who's had a relationship as long as I had would understand. So to clarify to the people confused, my 6+ year relationship started when we were both 18 as friends with benefits, got married at 22, and we separated when we were 24. We're 25 now and have gone out separate ways after finalizing our divorce. The only good news I have now is a promotion I'm getting soon. By the way, that summer trip was fun. I really needed it as a life booster.
OP, I'm glad that your story ended well. Just keep grinding, man. Your life will only continue to improve if you do so. Good luck. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.